So, welcome to ToMakeItGo. At the moment, I've decided to move forward with making something now that I have a rudimentary front controller in place. I am going to move on to talking to a database and storing some basic information. So, what my first idea is to do is to build something that allows me to take notes. So I'm basically going to build a note system. Take notes, edit notes, modify them, that sort of thing. This will also naturally lead me into handling users, because I don't want just anyone to be able to modify my notes that I put up on ToMakeItGo, because that would let anyone modify my notes, because things on the internet, edit capability on the internet should be secured in some fashion. So first we'll build a note system, then we'll build an authentication system, and then I will push that out to ToMakeItGo in that order. So step one is I have to have some sort of persistent data, or otherwise my notes won't make any sense to keep. I am currently backed by Hikaru, and the database engine they recommend is Postgres. I have never particularly used PostgreSDB before. I've used MySQL and TSQL, or Microsoft Server, I guess I should say. Those are the two databases I've used so far. So Postgres may have a few quirks I like for me. We'll find that out as I go. I have created my first table, called it Note. I can show you the create script. It's down here in schema. So create table, note, serial, which I thought was odd. We're not going to configure that. We will, however, give it a dialect. It is PostgreSQL. Let's press this for this file. Okay, there we go. Inspection. There you go. Great. Table, note. It's got a serial ID, parent node ID. I'm going to make my notes be able to reference other notes. Well, going down. It's got some text. It's got a timestamp and a mod time. Labeled my primary key. That's already been run on my database. So just to make sure I have everything going, I have got the basic Java-isms for getting a connection managed from a drive manager. I'm going to have to go and build some stuff to let me work with SQL in a particularly interesting manner. Here we go. My goal for today, primarily being, my goal is primarily going to be to get some CRUD operations down. So create, read, update, delete, get that working under test, so that I have a way of verifying it. Then I will move on to building some routing use cases and that sort of thing. Well, routing methods, functions, I guess. Okay, but step one is make sure that I actually have a connection and I start isolating some of my transaction operations and other operations into a single spot. So right now we'll run this, see if we explode. I'm using a system to get an environmental variable. It's all set. So I didn't explode, which means I could talk to my database, which is good. The reason I'm calling it database underscore URL is that is the default that Hikaru uses when you set up their PostgreSDB. I could have used MySQL DB, they did have that option, but they were like, hey, use Postgres, and I've never done it before, so I chose to follow the recommendation. Gives me a chance to learn some mildly different variants of SQL. Well, a different variant of SQL. Okay, so we're going to make a new package. I'm going to call it DB. Cleverly. Here we're going to have a connection factory. Connection factory. Now, then, I am going to want to have something where I can pull a connection out of there. Yes. I'm going to have to figure out something to do. So now I have to, well, let's static. I'm gonna do this nonsense. Class for name. Because I can never, sometimes those work, sometimes they don't. We're gonna surround it with a try catch. We're just gonna throw a legal state. So, throwing an illegal state exception out of a catch block method call missing new. So that will stop my class from loading and present all sorts of problems and dump angry things into the log. Potentially. Sometimes it, other times it just won't. Okay. So now, don't have to worry about that. Let's go into connection factory. In this guy, we're going to say, what am I going to say? Type. We're going to public static. For now, it's going to be static. I could make this, or I could make a wrapper eventually for tests so that I'm always in a rollback transaction, so I don't ever affect anything in my test DB. Or I could also just fork and have a separate test database, which I may end up doing. However, that gets a bit odd versus when do I have my run and when do I have my other one. And unfortunately, IntelliJ's Jetty integration didn't allow me to set environmental variables on the fly that I saw, so I was forced to set my database driver as my system variable, or environment variable for my system, for my user on Windows, which is a bit gross. But enough of that. I will have to investigate further for that. At the moment, we're just going to have some poor database practices and just talk to one, shove test data in there, run it on my, it is just my local DB. It is a local copy, so I'm not affecting anything that would be considered production. Create connection. So this is just going to be exactly what's in my main. I'm going to return this. I also realize that in a web environment, you probably, at some point, I will probably want to slot in a data pool, source data pool. So I'll just throw it at this point. There you go. Create connection. We'll get you, pull it out of the thing. Good. We'll throw a SQL exception and everything will be terrifying. Okay. So now then, we have that. Well, let's start by building some basic objects. So let's make another directory. New package. We will call it notes. Note. And it'll all be lowercase. Note. So inside of note, we will have something called create note. So now in order to create a note, according to my schema, which I will go look at, I will need a note text, a parent note ID, and everything else will get filled in for me. I probably should have foreign keyed that, but I'm not going to. Foreign keyed parent note ID onto note. But I did not. I wonder if I need nullable. I think that's done by default, but I'm not sure. I'll add it there and run it on my production database that way. Okay. So let's build this up. Public int. Great note. The int that I'm going to return is going to be the int I'm going to return is going to be the thing that, or the primary ID. That's going to be the ID. I'm going to hand back the ID after I create the note. It's going to be a whole thing. I should probably make that yeah, that's good. So I needed a string, note text, and I needed an integer, note parent ID. There you go. Those are the only two pieces of data I needed. I'm going to return 0 for now. There we go. Everything's good. I'm going to take a connection. we'll take that on construction. Yes, I have just wholeheartedly jumped in bed with Java's basic drivers. I'm not going to grab an ORM until I absolutely have to, because I personally think most ORMs are solving a small problem with the biggest hammer that they can conceivably use. So I'm just going to muddle through using the JGBC basic one for now. I may build stuff on top of it. We'll see how this goes. It all depends on how quickly I get sick of it. So we'll see where this leads me. Okay. Let's create a new test. Now this guy, I'll call it create. Nope. New create note. We're going to say null for now. At this point, I'm going to public static class in rollback transaction. It's going to have a method on here. It's going to return void. It is going to take a runnable, or a consumer, I guess. Run consumer of type connection. It's going to be public. So connection factory dot create connection. First around that and a try catch. Okay, at this point, I'm just going to print stack traces. I know it's a little bit gross, but I eventually would log it and do something better. But for now, we're not. Okay. Connection dot set auto commit false. Connection dot rollback. We need a finally. Well, actually, at this point, we need another try. Oh yeah. Catch. SQL exception E, because both the rollback and the other thing throw it. Connection dot really rollback. Finally. Connection dot close. Run dot accept connection. Okay. At this point, I am supposed to say connection does not equal null. Because no, at this point it can't be null. It's because if I get an exception out of here, I won't get a connection. So I won't be in this try block. There we go. Throw E. So something some SQL nonsense happens here, and I should make this actually exception because I don't know what this guy's going to throw. Because anything I should do, I need to roll back because I'm on my test DB, and that is in a rollback transaction. So now we say in rollback transaction, we'll also make that static. Dot run. Big old block of code here. Connection. Ah, yeah. Some no text. And I'm going to pass null. Isn't that everything you hoped it would be? Okay, at this point, I am then going to note ID. Assert that, well, assert true, Because all I can really tell about that at the moment is that it should be greater than 0. Because it was serial and it should mark the table up. And this is gonna fail. I've just done some nasty connection-y stuff. Okay. So connection dot prepare statement. We're gonna prepare some statement. We're gonna pass it in one of those connection-y keys. And I have to do a little Googling. Prepared statement, send auto generated ID back. Statement. And we're just going to throw new illegal state, because I don't particularly want to deal with SQL exceptions, because they get sort of shoved everywhere. Statement. Okay. We're going to shove this down, shove this down. Now this is going to be insert into nope. Values. Go pull up my schema. I'm going to pop this into a second window so I can read it. So I need parent node ID. Parent node ID. I need the note. I need the create time. I need the mod time. So I set these two in. Create time is current timestamp. Current timestamp. It's a little bit gross that I have inline SQL, but I will move that somewhere in a bit. Okay. Now then, set object, because that can be null. If we index from 1, that is the parent node ID. Note parent ID. Parent ID. Parent note ID is better. And we're going to set string because I might as well call the right thing. Nope, text. And then I'm going to call statement.execute. Execute update is probably what I should really call. Get update, and that should return me the ID. I think. Returns either 1, the row count for SQL, or 0 for the statement that returns nothing. Nope. Execute update. Statement.get metadata.get there's something else I have. Statement.get generated keys. Okay. So if keys.next return generated keys dot get int column 1, else we will throw another illegal state. note, not. At this point, you might be thinking, you should go get Hibernate, and I'm kind of in the same boat as you. But, because this is a really trivial object, and I just did a lot of goo to make it create, and I'm going to do a lot more goo mapping objects in and out of prepared statements, and we'll see how this evolves. I will try and build to the point where I could just easily swap Hibernate in and out and keep all of my connection-y stuff contained in one of these little objects. We'll see how this goes. Excellent. So that created a thing. That's system.out.print it to just convince myself that it's a node ID. Right, it makes sense. It should be 1, 2, it should count up, 3, okay. So even though I rolled back, actually let's go check to make sure that I did roll back. So I'm going to open up data group. It's connected to my database. Look, it's who I work for. Okay. Select star from. Nope. Excellent. I didn't modify anything. I can be relatively convinced that, in the end, my rollback transaction worked. We'll have to write something similar for my use case. So we build stuff up, then we'll have to keep, because I want to keep my trend talk when I talk to the database as small as possible. Okay, there we go. There's that. So now that we know that, let's change this up a bit and build an actual note object. Create Java note. So when I have a note, I want to talk about it in a certain way. Integer note ID. Parent note ID. String text. Date. Create time. Date. Mod time. At some point I'll have a mod user, but right now there's no concept of users. Just put getters and setters on this sucker. So now we come back over here. And instead of doing this, we will make, this is going to be a little bit for factoring goo, int create note. And I pass it a note. Note. We're going to call return create int note dot get text note dot get parent note ID. We're going to inline this. I can't inline that because the other dude doesn't use it. However, okay. So we're going to go to this guy's test. I'm going to create a new note. Note to save. Note to save.set. Parent note ID null. I don't have to do that because it's going to be instantiated to null anyways. Save.set. Note text. Some note text. Make this note. Run this again, make sure I haven't broken anything. I just should delegate, it should work fine. We'll inline this now. Now we've got a bunch of goo inside of here. Note, so create note. We have a note. Let's create a find note by find a note. It's going to return a note. To take an integer. ID. Turn a new note. Okay. Now then, let's go to our test. Find a note at test. Okay. And yes, I am directly testing my data layer, but it's important that I test my data layer because at this point my data layer is derived by me, which, well, number one, this is going to make for slow tests. Well, slow-ish tests. But at the moment, I'm the one writing the prepared statements, SQL statements, which means that, well, number one, I may write just bad SQL, and number two, I might write bad SQL, and number three, I might write bad SQL. So this has to be tested because I have manually written a prepared a SQL statement out, which means this is just a point where it will just fail if I make an error, which means it has to be tested. At some point I may move, but at the moment it's taking, what, a couple milliseconds? That's a third of a second. That's not that bad. That is not enough damage for me to say, don't ever do this. So we'll grab exactly this because I will need to find a note. I'll need exactly that. We're gonna do this same stuff, except now we're going to say new find note. We're gonna pass it the same connection. We're going to bind that to a field. And then I'm going to go select it. Find node ID. Saved it. Got to make sure that I can find it. At this moment, you might be wondering why I'm instantiating a new one of these objects with a connection each time instead of just putting them all together in one and be like, but single responsibility. You create notes, you find notes. At this point, I should be able to assert that note that get ID is note ID. That makes sense if I persisted it. It doesn't, because it was 5, I got a null. Now I'm going to write a select statement, pull out my note, stuff stuff in there, and that will be all. So, step 1, connection, create prepared statement. Alright, it's prepare statement. Prepare statement, select, well, at the moment I just need a node ID from note. I'll surround that with a try catch. Same thing. At some point I should probably do something about those because throwing illegal state exceptions is a bit childish. I'm broken. But there's not much I can actually do. This gets a where node ID equals question mark. Statement dot set object node ID, and this is position 1. Prepared statements index from position 1. We call statement dot execute query. In the strictest sense, I should be wrapping all of my result sets nonsense and my prepared statement in try catches and closing them because they do represent an object on the database. But I don't want to. Next. Note equals new note. Note dot set note ID result set dot get. Ooh, I gotta do something crazy. Result set dot set int get int note ID if result set dot was null. Note dot set. Actually, I don't need to do that. It can never be null if I found it. Doesn't make any sense, but that's how you get nulls from the primitive types. Otherwise, they just put zeros in there. We're going to throw an illegal state down here. We're going to return note. Could not find. That actually should be wrapped in its own special exception, because not being able to find it out is an exception I would like to tell the user, like, hey, whoa, I can't find it. Especially if they called it by an ID. So now, run my test. They mapped. Excellent. Then we're going to go through and do the next mapping bits. To find out. So then we're going to be, hey, it should have get text. Should be some note text. Ooh, there is one more thing I should probably put on my notes, is a title. Subject. I didn't. That is one thing I have written down in my notes to do. So then, my time is up. That will have to be doing it next time. I will modify my DB patch accordingly while I'm gone. Well, I can just do it right now. Pull it over here before I forget. Subject, that's going to be text, comma. Like this text as well, because I like caps lock. Ah. Because it's Java, everything should yell at me. There we go. Save that. I'll drop the table and do everything up again. We'll add that to my entity, or my note object while no one's looking. String subject. Add the getter and setter. I will have to modify my create. It's the third object in there, question mark, comma. Get note text, I get subject. There we go. So find note will end up testing create note, because it's just going to be a cycle, make sure I can create everything, sign everything. It's all CRUD tests. And then that's everything I think I'll be doing. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm going to stop coding for now. Good night.